here with Chris Miles, Money Ripples. Before we get rolling, I want to do a brief intro, and really glad that you joined us. You'll be very happy that you are part of this webinar. So Chris Miles is known as the cash flow expert and financial advocate for the entrepreneur. He's a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to quickly free up and create cash flow today, spending time doing what they love most, doing what you love most, right? He's an author. He's the podcast host of the Chris Miles Money Show. And by the way, his show's been featured in U.S. News, CNN, Money, Entrepreneur on Fire, and has a high reputation with his company, moneyripples.com. And let me just tell you what I know about Chris, but not going off of a formal bio. I know that he's honest, that he's authentic, that he's an integrity, that he's a true entrepreneur. And I've been following him and sort of stalking him for a long time. And I got to meet him finally a few months ago. And I understand why people say he gets clients fast and he has life-altering financial results. And that's why I wanted to bring him to you and into your awareness and knowledge. I'll tell you that Chris's clients have increased their cash flow by over $100 million, and that's in the past 7 years. So Chris, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for doing this webinar with us.
No, it's absolutely an honor. In fact, I gotta tell you, it's absolutely, there's a kind of that mutual love thing there too, because like I told you when I first met you last year in San Diego, is there's nobody else I met at that conference. It was you. Like that was the thing. I've been stalking you as well. I'm glad it's mutual.
Very excited, and I really am excited for the folks that are joining us. And you know, some of them were not able to be here live, so we're going to record this and make sure the others can see it. But I just want everyone who's here, stop multitasking. Trust me on this. Pay close attention and really tune in. This is going to really alter your money situation, and I'm excited for you.
Me too. This is gonna be great. So
good. Well, let's dig in. Let's rock.
Let's dig in. Let's do it. So anyways, like just make sure the chat works. Everybody, just go ahead and type in the little chat box there that you have there. Go ahead and write a message. Just let me know that you're on, that you can hear everything okay. Just make sure we got you all here.
Everybody see where the chat box is, so we get in chat.
See Marianne typing right now. Yep, there it is. Hi. Hi, Marianne. Good to see you. And then I saw somebody else type. Oh, Terry's typing too. Great.
I wanted to play too.
I know. Don't want to be left out of the high conversation here.
Of course not.
So I just got to tell you, like, I'm so excited because, you know, as a entrepreneur, I mean, like, I know I sent my people too. I told them that you should really be on this if you're a heart-driven entrepreneur. Like, if you're somebody that really is here to make a difference, because, you know, money is so critical. Money is not everything. Money doesn't bring happiness or nothing like that. But I'll tell you this, money is a magnifier of the soul. Money makes us more of who we already are. And so when we have money, especially when we have cash flow coming in, that can allow us to do so much more, have so much greater impact in people's lives, and serve more people. And that's what it's really about. I mean, I know I'm here on this planet because I want to create a legacy, and I'm sure many of you are too. So let's dig in right now. Now, obviously, you know, I'm a financial guy. I've been doing this for like 15 years. But what you may not have known is I actually used to be one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers. And now this is about, you know, 30 pounds ago and about, 15 years ago. But I used to do this like at a point almost to the professional. I actually stopped just shy of becoming a professional. I didn't want to get paid for it. So I decided to stay on the amateur level when I did it. But I'll tell you, it's interesting because I learned to dance. I wasn't naturally good at dancing. But I learned that there's a lot of girls in the class. If I wanted to meet girls, especially when you're like an 18-year-old kid, definitely that's a big thing. And so even at 18 and then into my early to mid-20s, I was dancing pretty seriously. And one thing I learned was from my dance teacher. She says, Chris, you're good, but you're not great. It's like you work hard, you have fun, you know the moves. But she's like, but if you can change just a little tweak in your dancing, if you just change one little thing. And what she had me change was my core, my center. She's like, if you control that and really use that center a lot, then all the dancing gets more crisp, you get better, You actually end up, doing, competing with the people that were some of my friends who are now professionals on Dancing with the Stars, right? And so she's like, you do that, you'll start winning competitions. And I did. I started to change it. I started practicing the core, the center. And when that was in place, everything else fell into place. And that's when I learned it's not about working harder, and it's definitely not even just about working smarter. Because it doesn't matter how hard I worked at the dancing nor what steps I knew. It was about doing it right. It's not about working harder or smarter, it's about working right. And that's the thing I've realized is that most people are missing is because they're trying to do everything with trying to be smart. We've been taught money forever. But people, even though they've been taught all these smart things to do, notice it hasn't really worked yet. Most people aren't really financially free yet. So why would we keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result? And that's why I love the Mark Twain quote here. It says, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. So just out of curiosity, or anybody that's listening to this, any of the rest of you kind of like rebels by in any way, shape, or form, like where you're like, hey, I go against the grain because I know that's what works? I know Terri is, that's for sure. Awesome. So that's exactly what we want to do. And so just like what Jerry Seinfeld said in one of his episodes, he says, just do the opposite. Because if every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right. And so if you notice that if financial education, all this kind of stuff I've been teaching you about scarcity and about trying to live on so little and minimalism and basically trying to suck your entire life away, where you're just supposed to sacrifice, save, spend nothing, suffer, and just suck, right? I mean, that's pretty much what we've been taught. And so I say, let's turn this on its head. Let's go from a place of abundance, not from a place of scarcity. And the problem is, again, every piece of advice you've had comes from scarcity, doesn't it? Like, how many of you have been taught, hey, you're supposed to pay off all your debt, spend as little as possible, save as much as you can, save forever, right? Spend nothing when you get to that quote-unquote retirement, all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, how many of you guys have heard this before? Right? And so that's what we want to avoid is like, let's get away from that because that kind of stuff, that stuff we've been teaching just yokes you down with chains of bondage. I mean, all that crap they're teaching you doesn't work. And I know because I used to teach it. I started the first 4 years as a traditional financial advisor. And I'll tell you, like, I taught people to live in that scarcity. I taught those very same things. And guess what? It doesn't work because when I looked at evidence, I looked at people's lives, they weren't getting any better. They weren't any better off than most people. They were still living at poverty or middle class. That's it. And especially if they're trying to invest in the stock market and all kind of crazy crap like that that's driven by scarcity, that doesn't work. And so what we got to get rid of all that advice you've heard. All that stuff you've heard, like ignore it. In fact, if you do the opposite, you probably have a better chance of being successful, right? And the thing is, it's not just your life it's affecting those that you love the most. It's affecting your kids when it starts to create that tension. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs that I speak with and I talk to and speak at conferences, many of them struggle so much because they see the scarcity world of money and they see what they're trying to create in abundance and they don't mesh. And so you get a lot of people that have big hearts, but they have small wallets or small purses. And I'm here to change that. That's why I created the whole company Money Ripples in the first place, is I want to create a ripple effect that ripple throughout an individual's life, through their family, through their community, and ultimately across the world. And that can only happen as we set ourselves free first. That's where it starts. So my main crux, my main thing to do, and Jason, I appreciate you giving that huge high five. Yes, I appreciate that too. The big thing is that cash flow creates freedom. Cash flow creates freedom. How many of you guys talk about, and I know you guys come from all different walks of life, but if you talk about energetic flow, what happens when you block flow? For example, let's use water, right? When we block the flow of water, what happens below that water? Or when the water doesn't get to anywhere? It dies, right? It withers away and dies. When you block blood flow, you die. If you block money flow, you can financially die. And so we want to have a constant flow of money. So when I talk about cash flow, I say that income, here's expenses, right? When income's up here, the difference, that's cash flow. This is good. When expenses are higher than income, this is bad. Yay, boo, good, bad, right? Like that's kind of thing. We want it here. We want income up here, expenses down here, but not living on rice and beans and being dirt poor and live on top ramen. No, absolutely not. We want abundance and freedom plus stewardship. So when you have less cash flow, there's more stress. I mean, imagine your life right now. I mean, just picture this. I mean, if all of a sudden you had an extra, say you had now an extra $2,000 a month of expenses that you weren't counting on, how do you feel? So those of you that's on this webinar right now, go ahead and type in the notes. Like, how does it feel? Like all of a sudden, $2,000 a month more you have to produce. You have 2,000 more of expenses every month. How does that feel? What are some emotions that come up? Go ahead and type that in the chat box right there.
While they're doing that, I'll just say, as soon as you said it, I kind of felt choked off. It was like, a little scared and very choked off.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people say, yeah, Jason says it feels heavy, right? Really heavy. When you said choked off, I heard a lot of people say they can't feel like they can't breathe, right?
Yeah,
it's
very
almost like
much.
restrictive.
Yeah,
right?
very much.
Yeah.
Restrictive. Very good word. Yeah.
Exactly.
Heavy. Good word, Jason.
Now, what about the opposite? Now, all of a sudden, let's say we get rid of that. So, podpoc that, get rid of it, right? And all of a sudden we say, okay, now you're back to normal. So we're grateful we're back to where we are currently in our current situation. Now, what if someone added an extra $2,000 a month of income into your life right now? Now, how would that feel? Go ahead and type that in the chat as well. Like, how does that feel? Like, what's that feel like when all of a sudden now you have $2,000 a month coming in each and every month?
Curious to see what words people have.
Yeah. What are some words or emotions that come to mind or expressions?
Oh, I love it. Like dancing through life. I love it.
Love it. That's great. How about you, Terry? Like, how do you feel? Say you had an extra 2,000 or 5,000 a month coming in right now.
It came to me was abundant.
Yeah, it's abundant, right? How'd that breathing go, by the way? That choking?
Oh, yeah, I'm breathing easier, and I actually noticed I'm smiling just as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So to go with Jason before, instead of heavy, I feel very light.
Exactly. That is the whole purpose of why I'm trying to create what I am. Because I'll tell you, like, when you come from a place of more cash flow, and this is not just making more income, although that's great too, it's also how do we control expenses and get that working for us as well. And it does amazing things. Now, just think, that was only $2,000 a month. That's like $24,000 a year. I didn't write you a check for $1 million and say, here's $1 million, here you go. It was just $2,000 a month, which, by the way, that's less than the average client that I help. Usually it's about $2,800 a month. And some of the people actually lately, it's been almost closer to $4,000 a month. Because now I've been throwing in a lot of things to create passive streams of income and things like that. And I'll tell you, it changes people's lives. It absolutely revolutionizes the way everything happens because now you're able to be liberated and free. And I remember I had one client up in North Dakota. He was a chiropractor, so he's a healer. His wife did more on the nutrition side. And it's interesting, like when we redid some of their stuff, it freed up $6,000 a month. And I'll talk about some of those strategies here in just a second. But $6,000 a month. Now, he was the type of person that he just saved every little bit he could. He wouldn't spend anything, especially on himself. And the thing, I'll tell you, when his wife came to visit us in Utah, she said, you know what just absolutely changed our life is that after he freed up the $6,000 a month, that month, he went and bought a $6,000 four-wheeler to spend time with our family. She's like, I got my husband back. And she's just bawling. She's like, you can't understand like how amazing that is because he actually is willing to do things with us. He doesn't feel like he has to keep working so hard. He feels like he can now relax, which, by the way, when you relax, guess what happens to your income anyways? You make more. Yeah. Because when you relax, like you actually make more money because you're not trying to force it. It's power versus force. You don't have to force it anymore. Now money's coming in. It's flowing in. And you actually don't feel like you need the money, which is funny because then that's when everybody wants to work with you. That's when everybody wants to hire you, right? And so that's the blessing. That's the cool thing that comes behind it. And I'll tell you, I've been in both situations. I've not only been in a place where I retired when I was 28, not only in the place like right now where I have streams of income coming in where I really don't have to coach anybody right now. But I'll tell you, like I've also been on the flip side, where I went through the Great Recession. I was in the hole over $16,000 a month, and I had to pay off over $900,000 of debt in just about 3.5 years. So here's what's amazing. I was able to retire when I was 28 in 2006, and that was amazing. By the way, I only had $2,000 in my checking account when I did it. But a few years later, the Great Recession hit. I had all this stuff with real estate. I actually came out of retirement, cut off some of my streams of income to go coach and live my mission. And then all of a sudden, all the people I was coaching were real estate investors. And so all of a sudden, they didn't have money. Real estate wasn't paying me. It's like everything was collapsing at once. and I went to a place where I was making 5,000 or 6,000 a month, but my expenses were like 21, 22,000 a month. That was like a place of like, oh crap. And by the way, I was supposed to be the one that had it figured out. I was the one supposed to be teaching people how to get out of the rat race, right? So I've been in both places. I've been where it sucks, and I've been where it's awesome. And I tell you, I like awesome better. But I'll tell you, like, I've proven it twice. These principles work. There's principles first, and then strategies second. So let's talk about those a little bit here. So scarcity, here's about this. We already talked about this a lot. You guys have already described it. Obviously, there's limits. There's never enough, right? It's the thing where you have to get into the ground floor for that opportunity. There's never a right time. Like the time's right now, right? Versus, abundance. It's not living in fear. It's living in faith. It's living in confidence. You're living with freedom, right? It's liberating. It's a place where there are no limits. When you realize that really you are a person of abundance, like you can create. You're a creator, not a consumer. You're a creator, not a reactor, right? All these things, and it's because your perspective that creates that action. Let's talk about these really three different perspectives of money and build from there. So, for example, one is spender. Now, for you guys that are here on this, start typing in this chat here. What do spenders do really well? I know it's a trick question. Terri, what do you think?
Spend.
Exactly.
I can answer that because that's me. I am a spender.
And on the flip side, what do savers do really well?
Save.
Save, right? Yeah, they spend or they save. Which, by the way, each of these come from a place of scarcity. Even though, which is funny because all the financial advice comes from that saver paradigm, right? But it's all scarcity. Like they're both come from a place of fear. Now, I've seen some spenders, they get a bad rap. I'll tell you, spenders are actually the closest to being what I call as a steward, who is actually in abundance. They're probably the closest ones. Because spenders actually are willing to let money flow. But unfortunately, it flows out, but it just never flows back in, right? And they do it for different reasons. I knew somebody who actually was a spender because their father was such a hoarder, such a saver hoarder, that they would never do anything fun as a kid. And so she vowed that when she became an adult, she would never do that, that she would have fun time with her family, that she would actually spend money and invest in her family. So it's not just because people have this horrible addiction to, clothes or shoes or anything like that. It's not about that. And yeah, that's out there. But it's more than that. It's about, again, living in that fear, like getting out of that scarcity. And savers do the same thing because you can never save enough. You can never pay off debt fast enough. It's never enough for savers. You got to be right in the middle. We take the best of the spender and the saver and you put it into one, which is a steward. Stewards actually want to take responsibility. Their whole goal is to be able to create more. They want to create. They want to magnify. They want to beautify. They want to improve upon things that are already there and make things better and ultimately create value for people to bless more lives. That is what a steward does. So a steward comes from a place of abundance and realizes that there's something more to it.
So Chris, can I change my answer?
Yes.
I said I was a spender, and that is because I do spend money on friends, family. I just spend some on myself, but I spend a lot more spending money on my foundation and on the boards that I work with. So as I'm thinking about it, I think I'm more in the steward role because I'm really coming from abundance and sharing abundance. Does that make sense?
Which you'll find out, and we'll talk about this in just a second, but stewards spend more money than spenders. But the difference is when they spend money, it's like they invest it, right? And then it comes back. There's that flow. Always a constant flow, that cycle. So there is that's why like spenders sometimes got it close, but they just have a slightly different perspective that throws them off, right? Savers can be good too, because at least savers are willing to think about things before they just pull the trigger, while spenders might be more impulsive, right? So if you can, slow down that vibration a little bit, think, and then be able to be willing to use money, then that's where stewardship really comes into play. And so in fact, let's talk about 3 key principles that help with that really makes stewards different. One, and you might want to write this down because obviously there's no words on this. Number 1 is that money is meant to be used. So go along with your point, Terri, like money is actually meant to be used. It's meant to flow. I'll tell you, like I heard a speech given in the 1800s by a guy who actually was a pioneer, and he was telling the people that were settling that land, he said, listen, like, if you hoard and keep money, try to bury it in your yard or whatever it is, when you do that, it'll rust and canker your soul. Like money is meant to be used. It's meant to flow. It's meant to bless. I mean, because what the heck? I mean, when you die, so what? I mean, how many Egyptians died, pharaohs died with their wealth buried with them, hoping to go with them in the next life, only to find out they couldn't take it with them. And so end up when having grave robbers got it. So tomb robbers got it. So it didn't do them any good. It's what can you do while you're on this planet to really affect and create change, right? So money is meant to be used. Number two is that dollars follow value. Dollars follow the value that you create for other people. I'll tell you, like what got to me retired the most was focusing on this one principle. If you get nothing else out of this, focus on just this. Never, ever, ever ask, how can I make more money? Never ask that question. Remove it from your vocabulary because that question has never worked for people. They're still stuck. There's so many generations of people that have been broke asking, I need to make more money. How do I do it? And they don't know. But if you go to the source of money, which is value, because all you have to do is, how do we create value in a way that's more valuable to them than the dollars in their pocket? If we can create more value, then there's more dollars that follow. And so the question we should be asking is, how do I create more value for more people? That's the real power question. And when I started asking questions like, how do I create the win-win, and what can I do for people? Like, what can I give them? Like, what do they want? When I started doing that, it's amazing how opportunities showed up, and all of a sudden, creating streams of income was easy. Money wasn't mysterious or hard anymore. It's like, wait, I just have to show up and serve, solve problems, add value to people's lives, and that's it? Well, yeah. And it's interesting because I love passion, but I tell you, passion, where they say, do what you love, the money will follow, is only partly true. Because there are a lot of passionately broke people out there, aren't there? In fact, it might be some of us on here right now, and that's perfect, right? That's exactly where we are. But passion doesn't pay the bills. But here's what I would add to that to make it more true, is do what you love, that others love you doing, and then the money can follow. Do what you love that others love you doing, and then the money can follow. That's the key right there. So again, it's about value. And then the third one is that exchange creates wealth. Exchange creates wealth. The faster we exchange value, resources, money, all that kind of stuff, the faster we do it, the more everybody prospers, the more abundance everybody gets. This is true. Like if you look at the Great Depression, did people want to exchange money? No, like they were holding on to it, right? And when everybody held on to the money, well, guess what? They weren't buying things. They weren't spending money. Therefore, people weren't getting paid, and people were losing their jobs. And when they lost their jobs and didn't have money, then you didn't get paid. So everybody lost their jobs when everybody stopped the flow. Remember that flow again, right? They stopped the flow. Contrast that with the internet in the 1990s. It had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with Clinton or anything like that. It had to do with all of flow and the internet coming to be. Because when the internet came in the 90s, we could point and click and buy things at 2 a.m. We could exchange money anytime. No more, dial now. The lines are open 24 hours. You can pay with Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or COD. Like, it wasn't like that anymore, right? Like, it was actually like we could just go click and make money. There was flow. That is what created a better economy. Had nothing to do with politics or politicians. We don't really need them. We just need to be able to create flow. Give you an example. One thing that I did, I actually just saw my Facebook newsfeed recently, just a few days ago. But it was just 3 years ago, 2014. I remember I had a great year in 2013, and then January through March, it was crappy. Like those 3 months were like the equivalent of a good month, a good 1 month, right? So it was like down like 60% from normal. And so I was stressed out financially. And I remember calling up one of my friends and just venting, saying, oh my goodness, this is driving me nuts. Like I feel like people aren't flowing. Like there's not exchange going on. Like I feel like everybody's just stuck. And then all of a sudden, like the idea popped in my head. I said, I get it. And I told my friend, like, I know what I need to do. I'll talk to you later. And I hung up the phone. Obviously, my cell phone is like a rotary phone, apparently, So I hung up the phone, and then I went and I did a blog post. And I said, here's the 5 key areas of business you needed to take care of. And I said, like, things like technology, sales, marketing, obviously financial, as well as with like business coaches and stuff. And so I started hyperlinking to like my favorite business coaches and why I would use each one for what their specialty was. Who are the technology people you should get to know? Who are the marketing people, the sales people? Obviously financial people. I put my competition in there. I threw myself in as well, but like, yeah, I'm a given. But then I threw in my competition. Ironically enough, one of those competitors is actually now my wife. Didn't actually expect that one. But yeah, she thought, I remember she actually telling me, she's like, "Are you crazy? Why are you promoting me? Like, we're competitors, right?" I was like, "Because I know that people that were a good fit for you probably aren't a good fit for me. And we have different people, so it's fine." Here's what's interesting. That was March of 2014, right? In April of 2014, so the next month in April, those next really 3 weeks, I made over $50,000 that month. My best month ever. Now here's the kicker. Guess how many referrals I got from those 13 people I referred to in that blog? 0. I think that's what's so beautiful about it, because think about it. 0 of those people referred back. It wasn't reciprocity. It was karma, right? It was the fact that I let it flow. I said, I'm going to do the opposite of what I want to do. I'm not just going to hold back. I'm going to let it flow. And so I did, and bam, everything like changed. It was amazing. So right now, type in the comments. I want to make sure you're still here. So Jason, Marion, and all the rest of you, like, type in here, like, what are the biggest things that are sticking out in your mind so far before we jump into strategies? What's really sticking with you? What's the big thing that you're getting from this so far? See some typing going on right now. Terry, what's sticking out to you while we're waiting for some of those responses?
I'm just getting back to the word flow, because I do think, I'm thinking about my clients and I'm thinking about some of my friends, that they're either in a place of trying to gather money to hold on to it, or they're in a place of, oh, I can't do anything with the money because I have to put it away for the future or invest it or whatever. So it's not flowing. I feel like it's tied up in some way. That really struck me. And the other thing that struck me was really talking about the value. I mean, when we just focus on creating value, in my experience, everything works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Jason just asked why that April was the biggest month. I would say this. I didn't stop creating value. You know, and like what Marion just said, value and stewardship. I still kept creating value for people. My own personal state of being. I knew I was in a place where that needed to come in. That money just had to come in. It wasn't about knowing that principles always work. See, principles are eternal. They're timeless. Strategies? Time, right? Keep being consistent. I had to keep creating. I couldn't go in. Because the natural thing you do is when you go into scarcity. It's through people that value you can create. So I didn't stop being in front of people. But I didn't. I felt that I don't want to say entitlement. I don't like the word entitlement. I knew I deserved more than enough value to see that. And what happened? Randomly. Some people were just like, hey, I saw what you posted today. I think we need to talk. And it was perfect. I did an event. And a few of those all of it just kind of came together. Because again, I was creating value that I deserved great money because I was giving. Whatever you give also comes back. Mm-hmm. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I can hear a lot of feedback.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
Here, I'll turn down my volume. Maybe that helps.
Okay.
So, does that help, Jason?
I actually think it did.
Okay. All right. So again, it was about the fact that I was value. Never stopped. What other people want, not just what I want. Again, outward focus versus just inward. Now, here it comes. Acceleration. This goes on with you also mentioned. You were talking about like not just accumulating money, right? How do we accelerate it? Getting that flow going. Who have the most money? The flow. Like they keep moving. They keep moving. They don't just let it sit there. Dust and compound over 50 years, like we've been taught. They put it to use. So let's talk about some of these strategies. Like I said, the average client's found about 34,600 clients in the last 2010. I started measuring it. Last 7 years. This one right here, these are the top ones that work. So I think it might just be that our two volumes, our two mics are bouncing each other.
Do you want me to take my sound off for a while?
Yeah, let's try it. Let's see what that changes it.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, but it's still here a little bit. So, all right. Okay, that looks good. That sounds good. All right, so let's dig into these strategies here really quick. I'm going to kind of fly through these. Here's the thing. If you want to read about these a little bit more in depth, if you're more of a reader or visual, I also have an ebook. You can go and get a free download of Beyond Rice and Beans, 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today on www.moneyripples.com. So just go ahead and you can find it there, but I'm going to fly through some of these. Number one, track money. You got to be willing to see where you are, both money coming in and money going out. It was interesting. Last weekend, I put on an event. One of my clients just said, I'm having a hard time tracking my money still. And she's very entrepreneur type of person. She's like, I'm just having a hard time doing it. And I told her, and as I started to hear her, I realized she still equates tracking money to budgets, which, by the way, I hate the B word. I like spending plan. I don't like the B word budget, right? Like, I like to talk about money flowing. And I like to see not only money meant to be spent, but also money coming in. So I said, why don't you start focusing on the money coming in? Which, by the way, like we got her doing some real estate investing. She's now making an extra couple $1,000s a month with that. Plus, I just showed her how to make another $4,000 a month or so on top of that. And so all of a sudden, she's like, wait, I get it. Like, I'm not just tracking my expenses. I'm tracking my money coming in. I get to follow that. That's fun. I'm like, yes, like that's what I said. But I'm glad you got it now. Like, it took a few times, but that's it. You got to be tracking money that flows in and flows out. You're always watching that flow. And I'll tell you, anytime someone's told me they're too busy to track their money, any entrepreneur that said that, I guarantee you they're losing at least $500 a month or $6,000 a year. So when you're talking about finding 5,000, 45 minutes, this one thing could be your $5,000 right here. Because I'll tell you, I have one person, a lady was making $250,000 a year in Silicon Valley, California, but she was spending, just eating out, seriously, $5,600 a month. $5,600 a month just eating out. That's not including groceries. That was another $1,000 on top of it. And so, and again, she wasn't tracking money. She didn't see it. So I just said, hey, why don't we actually go and like start to do this? Why don't we get your eating out to only $1,000 a month, right? Which some people are like, yes, I'll take $1,000 a month eating out. We did. That was $4,600 a month there. Plus, she did some other things with like her, her health insurance and things like that. And after tax savings, everything else, we found like $70,000 that year. Now, $70,000. Do you think that would make a difference in somebody's life, even if they make $250,000? Heck yeah, it was huge. Changed her whole way of life. In fact, she almost went overboard. She almost wanted to like cut out everybody out of her life. I'm like, whoa, hey, don't be too much of a saver there. Like, let's rein it back a little bit. She went from extreme spender to extreme saver. I was like, rein it in, steward, right in the middle. But that's huge. So tracking money is big. My biggest one was a dentist. In between his practice and at home, we found about $300,000 in a year. Crazy. Graphic designer found like $1,500. And it was just little things. Sometimes it was like cable TV and things like that. We're like, well, wait, you're paying $160 a month here. You can get it for $20 a month here. So just do that. And just little things. I mean, little things, kind of like Ben Franklin says, small leaks can sink a great ship. And so we look for those money leaks. By the way, as you can see right here, I use mint.com for personal finances. If you have a business, of course, use QuickBooks for your business. But I love mint.com. One, because it's free. Two, because it's actually like it downloads everything into one place. So all your loans, your credit cards, savings, everything into one place. You can see it right there real time. You don't have to go log into 8 different sites. You can see it all right there. And you can actually track the transactions. You can see what money is being spent. And the cool thing is, once you teach it, like what categories what, it'll say, oh, well, that's, you're going to, Whole Foods. Cool. Well, that's groceries or supplements or whatever you might categorize as. It remembers that. So you don't have to keep doing it over and over. No more writing on a piece of paper. It just does it for you. And it seriously takes a matter of minutes a week. If you do this just once a week, put it in your calendar, set the day and time, just try to do this once a week. You might not need more than like 10, 15 minutes to do that. That's it. 10 to 15 minutes that could possibly save you thousands a year. That's a huge return on your time. Number 2, Sell assets. And this picture here is a real picture. This is actually my dad's basement in Oregon. He is the master of the crane machine. You ever seen those things like in the stores? They pick up the little claw and drop the thing. He's the master of it. Like he teaches people, like he watches them do it. It's like, oh, you're doing this wrong. You need to do it this way, and you'll get more toys. He's just a master of it. But he's also a hoarder. The guy also has Mrs. Buttersworth syrup from 15, 20 years ago that's still on his shelf because he doesn't want to throw it away. Like that's the kind of hoarder my dad is. It's horrible, right? And so one of the best things you can do is sell assets. This was huge. Here's my mantra. If you're not going to use it, lose it. If you're not going to use it, either sell it, you can make some money, donate it and get the tax write-off, or just give it to somebody who will use it. I promise you, when you open up that flow, more will come in. More will fill in that space that you created. And so if you're not going to use it, lose it. Sell it, donate it, or give it away. I'll tell you, like I had a guy that, a client, again, a chiropractor, he had a cabin that he used twice a year, like 2 weeks out of the year. And we're looking at it, and I said, well, wait, you got $80,000 of equity in this cabin, in your home equity, and you're paying like $15,000 a year between costs and mortgage payments and everything else. But you use it 2 weeks out of the year, is that right? Yeah. Well, why don't we sell that cabin? We get $80,000 out of it, save you 15 grand a year, and we can put that $80,000 to do other things for you, whether we put it in your business or do some passive income streams, all that kind of stuff, right? And he said, wow, I can do that? I said, yeah, because you're not a hoarder. You're not a saver. You can actually sell things. And it's like, and again, it's about creating that cash flow. And so I said, the thing is, you can take a few thousand out of money you're saving every year, and you can go and stay anywhere you want. You can VRBO or Airbnb, whatever you want, you can do that. He's like, oh, well, cool. All right. And so he sold the cabin. Now contrast that with another client I had where he used the cabin every single weekend. I said, keep it. Because I'm like, hey, you're using it? Keep it. Marion asked, how do you define assets? Well, assets, good question. Assets can be like things like stuff, right? Assets could also be your mental capital. It could be your human capital. We all have assets within us as well, right? This could be selling your stuff, like selling your knowledge, selling your what's in your business. That's an asset too. I'll give you another example that's not a stuff type of example, although I have plenty of those. I had a scenario where I actually had a program in my head that I'd done a training many years ago, hadn't done it for years, called Find Your Divine Genius, which is basically like how do we take our gifts and our talents, and our passions and values and everything and figure out who we are to go and create that niche to be able to go and create with it. And so I realized that some people were asking questions on a certain Facebook group I was a part of. They're like, yeah, I'd love to know how to make money with my mission. Like, what's my mission? How do I make money with my mission or my passions? I was like, oh, I got an answer for you. I actually have a program I can do for you guys. Who would want that? And there was like tons of likes on that page, like huge interaction. I said, oh, well, that's a good clue, isn't it? So I went and I said, like 2 days later, I said, okay, I'm going to do a four-day webinar, called Find Your Divine Genius. And I'm only going to have 20 spots. I'll sell it $50 a piece. And bam, within a day, I made $1,000. The cool thing is I recorded it, just like I did on this platform, recorded it, and then turned around and sold it for $249 later on. Because I'm like, cool, here's the program, here's the workbooks to go with it, it's all yours, and voila, like I started making money multiple times. So you can sell assets that way too. There's, again, so many assets, but look to see what you have. Take out inventory and see what you need to get rid of or what you need to offer. Cool? Does that help, Marion? Terry's shaking her head like, oh yeah, we got it. Okay, debt. Thank you, Marion. Great, thank you. Debt. This is the big thing I'll say about debt. Don't fear it. It's not meant to be feared because that's scarcity. But do respect it. It can either help you or hurt you. I'll tell you, like, debt is a fun one for me because when people have a lot of debt, even though they're making a lot of money, they have a lot of debt, we can get so creative. I had a client just this last year. Funny enough, she worked for a credit union in the accounting department, right? So you think if anybody gets money, it should be her. Well, we restructured some things, found out we could do a refinance of their mortgage, paid off some of these loans and things like that. We freed up $4,163 a month, basically about 50 grand a year. And plus, on top of that, we found tax savings and everything else. It was like 65 grand by the end of that year when all was said and done. But that was a big one, is that, hey, how can we use debt appropriately? I actually like debt if it's used right. I have my clients, when they go do real estate investing, I'm like, good, use as much debt as we can because you can create more with it. In business, I'll tell you, I had an SBA loan that cost me $126 a month, but it was 25 grand. So if I have $25,000 I can put in my business, only costing me $126 a month. Well, heck yeah! Like that, unless you suck at business, that should work. Like that should always work. And so, like, if you can't make 126 bucks a month from 25 grand, you shouldn't be in that business, right? And so, obviously, like, if you can create more than what's costing you, do it. Don't let all the stupid financial people tell you that that's evil, it's bad, and you should avoid it like the plague. That's dumb. That's if that were the case, banks would never take on debt. But every time you put money in savings, you realize that they're paying you interest, therefore they have debt to you. Banks do it all the time. They love debt. They just tell you not to have debt so that you don't keep stringing out their payments to them forever, right? That's why they teach it that way. So anyways, don't fear debt. It's great. But again, don't focus on the interest rate. Focus on the cash flow. And I have a whole index that teaches like which ones we pay off and which ones we don't. Because some are worth it and some aren't, just depending on the situation. I had one client, by the way, with him, had $1,000 left on a credit card, no savings, nothing left, no assets, nothing. He had $1,000 on a credit card of space left. And he's like, what do I do? Like, I'm going under. I said, here's what you do. I'm like, have you done an open house in a while? Nope. I'm like, great. Oh, do an open house, whether it be in your office or you do it at a separate location. Do an open house. It was December or right around, it was like November. So I'm like, invite Santa Claus to attract the families, bring in a massage therapist because we all like seated massages, right? You know, bring all the stuff in, bring in people from the community, get them to promote it, and then watch what will happen. Because I asked him, like, what is one client for you? What is one customer? He says per year about 2,500 bucks. I'm like, great. So you get one new customer from this. You make 2,500 bucks to 1,000 bucks. That's a good investment. Well, guess what? He got 5. That's 12,500 bucks from just that, and he only used 600 of his credit card. So $600 created 12,500. I can tell you, there ain't no financial advisor that's going to tell you how to do that, right? That's how you create it. It can be created from there. So don't fear debt, but again, be wise with it. Be a wise steward. Taxes, I won't go into depth because I want to move this along and we're just getting towards the end. But I'll tell you this. Here's one great strategy that almost nobody's doing right now. And depending on your tax bracket, it will save you between $3,000 and $6,000 a year. This alone could be your 5,000 bucks in 45 minutes. So for example, I imagine many of you work from your home or have at least a home office of sorts, right? Well, one thing is don't ever do lease payment, right? Terry could actually be doing this today. In fact, that's what's really cool. Now, when we use our homes, we could do the same thing and go use a hotel, right? We could go get a Marriott, rent an event space, and go do that. Well, what's a typical event space renting for one day? Well, you look up Marriott, kind of generally nationwide, it's different in different areas. But nationwide, $1,250 is a pretty fair rate for getting an event room. Would you agree, Terry, with that? Yeah, 1,250 bucks. Well, cool. Well, guess what? If you can do that, and that includes wireless internet, catering, because obviously you have food and stuff, right? Well, why not do that from our home? We have food in a fridge. That's called catering. We've got wireless internet we can use. We got all the amenities. We can use boards or whatever. And whether you're just doing your own bookkeeping for the day or whether you have people over, you're doing a webinar, whatever it might be, you could say, hey, for that one day, and say it's just one day you do that per month, you pay yourself. Your company will pay you personally. So like, Terry's company would pay Terri Levine $1,250 bucks for the use of her home space for that day. Here's what's cool. If you don't go over 14 days a year, right? So just say you keep it one day a month, that's 12 days a year. That's $15,000 you've paid yourself, and you pay zero tax. Zero. Because it's not quite real estate income. Terry's like, yes, I got it. So yeah, depending on your tax bracket, that's between $3,000 and $6,000 a year you'll save just by doing that. It's called a corporate rent strategy. The tax code's like 20 something G. I can't remember the exact code. My accountants know it, but that's a cool one right there that almost anybody can do. And the great thing is it shows up in your return, but it doesn't show up as taxable income. It's awesome. I love it. So how's that? Was that pretty cool? Good. Although again, there's lots of tax strategies. Most of my clients find at least 5 to 10 grand a year typically. So income, this is the last one we'll end on. Income is huge, both in your business as well as what you can do outside of it. Now you can create income like we've talked about through your business, and I gave an example of that. Well, what are some other ways? Well, if you've got money, whether it's equity in a home or you've got retirement accounts or whatever, old stuff, savings. I've had a few people come to me recently that have been divorced and like their husbands, gave them money and they created income. I give you an example. I had a woman who just divorced last year. She got about 300,000 from the divorce, and she's like, "Okay, Chris, it's all settled. What do I do with this stuff? What do I do with this money?" And her whole goal, she had her own business. She did a self-defense type business. She'd go speak and stuff. But she's like, I'm kind of burning out. I'm getting older. She was in her 50s. She's like, I'm getting older. I'm burning out. I really just want to go to Bali. She's like, I just want to go to Bali and vacation there for like a year or so, and then figure out what I want to do when I get back. And so rather than trying to help her build her business, we went away from that. Like, okay, let's consider shutting the business down, or at least the way you know it today. Maybe you'll still teach some classes, but overall, you're not going hardcore hustling after it like everybody talks about, which, by the way, I'm totally anti-hustle. I think hustle is just the new age version of saying work your butt off, which is work hard but not work right. Um, so I just told her, like, okay, let's do that. And so we took that 300,000 and she bought 4 investment properties. Well, plus she ended up doing some things with loaning out money, like bridge loans, things like that, basically creating an extra $2,300 a month. Now we just realized she had equity in her property. We had another $300,000 we're just talking about using now that can create another 4,000 or 5,000 a month even. So here's what's amazing is that we're able to take the same resource she already had, and her whole goal was to not rely on the alimony, right? She's like, I want to be able to not, if he dies tomorrow or my alimony stops, I'm good. Well, after I told her, I was like, well, guess what? Even though you had that $3,000 a month of alimony, you're now going to have income over $10,000 a month. She's like, whoa, really? Is that possible? I'm like, yes, it is. It's very possible. And like, you can do it this year. And it just blew her mind. I mean, and the funny thing is, like, she got great coaching in her business and everything else, but that little thing, that tweaking her whole perspective, again, perspective shift, right? That made all the difference. And that's opened up her world to where now she's talking about staying in Bali for 2 years instead of 1. And she's like, you know what? Maybe I'll come back and I'll stay wherever I want in the U.S. or I'll just go roam around. Like, I don't need to live in one place. And so now it's given her options and freedom. And that's where cash flow really creates freedom, because cash flow creates options and options create freedom. Last final example of how this all ties together is I had one guy that he was living in Minnesota, and this guy in particular, he was getting in his 60s. His business had declined for 3 years in a row, just slowly but surely, to the point that now he was not just making extra money, now he was paycheck to paycheck. And he's like, well, what do I do? And so I started looking at all this stuff. I look at everything, assets, liabilities, all your resources, income, expenses, everything, right? And I said, you know what? If we just take $100,000 out of your IRA, he had $500,000 in IRA doing nothing for him. You take $100,000 out of that, we can pay down some of your loans, actually free up some cash flow, refinance your mortgage, do some things there. We can actually free up $50,000 a year with just $100,000. That's a 50% rate of return. He's like, yeah, but Chris, how am I going to retire? I said, 100,000 makes 50,000 a year guaranteed. We're not even talking about your business yet. He's like, yeah, but I can't retire. I'm like, 100,000 makes 50,000, 50% rate of return. Finally, it was his wife getting it, because it's always the women that get it first when it comes to common sense money stuff, right? She's like, honey, you still have $400,000. This makes sense. Let's just do it. So reluctantly and on good faith, he did it. We freed up 50,000 a year. That was over 4,000 a month. Here's what's awesome. Now, when that started to happen, he started to relax. Like, I remember I talked about power versus force, right? He started to relax in his business. He also started to get passion for his business again, because he was a healer. He loved helping people, but he was still like, how do I deal with that? And so I was like, don't worry about it. Like, just relax. So now he could. He's like, I don't need to make the money. So whenever people came into his office to meet with them, he's like, I don't have to make the money. Well, guess what? That's pretty dang attractive when you don't need the money. You're not desperate. You don't have that business breath that you're reeking all over the place when you're talking to people, right? And so he relaxed. Guess what? Not only did we free up the 50 grand, but he started making about another 2,000 a month in his business, doing nothing different other than relaxing. And so in total, he made about $70,000 that 1 year alone. Plus, he got his passion back. He was at a point where he just almost wanted to quit his business. Now he remembered why he did what he did. He was back on fire. Totally different conversation, very much a faith-building, confidence-building type conversation with him versus being scared and shrinking. It's growth and expansion. That's stewardship. That's what it really comes down to. And yeah, he did have some taxes on that money too. So, but even here's the thing. I actually had one client, same kind of situation. He had way more taxes and penalties with it than this guy did. He just had some taxes, that was it. I had one guy, he had to take out almost double the money to do the same thing. But here's the thing. If you take out, even in his case, he had to take out, say, $140,000, right, to make up for that. It's probably less for him, but say it's 140. That's way high. 140,000 to still make a guaranteed 50,000 a year. Is that still a good rate of return? I mean, really, with his IRA, he's hoping for 5%. When in that case, that's still making 33% a year. It's like, 5%, 33% guaranteed versus 5%. I hope and pray in the market. It made sense, And so, yeah, we do factor that in. We're like, what does it cost us and that kind of thing. That's great, It's awesome. So yeah, it actually didn't cost him that much. And I'll tell you, that extra $2,000 a month sure made it worth it. That probably paid his taxes alone for the next several years. So here's what really needs to change: is that one, you got to have awareness of your numbers. You can't ignore it. You got to look at it. It's a law of attention. Whatever you put your attention towards expands and grows, but whatever you ignore will leave you. You got to pay attention. You got to look at that. You got to have a more abundant steward mindset around money, and you got to be willing to do what's right for you and your family. Like, what's really right for you? What's your truth? What's going to help you? It's about growing and protecting and increasing that stewardship as you go. And that's where it really comes down. So in closing, just remember that cash flow is what creates freedom, because cash flow creates more options, and when you have more options, that's when you feel really free. It's not the amount of money, it's about that. So stop doing the same old crap you've been taught your whole entire lives with money. Do the opposite. Be a steward. Do what's right. Not just work harder or smarter, but work right. So anyways, a few things you can do. You can follow me. Terry mentioned moneyripples.com, or you can find my podcast, The Chris Miles Money Show, which is on iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff. I do like nice little 20-minute sound bites that are great and that kind of thing. So awesome show. And if you have questions like, hey, Chris, how does this apply to my situation? Email me. Shoot me an email, chris@moneyripples.com, and I can answer those questions as well. So anyways, guys, thank you from my family to yours, my humongous family to yours. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. There is one question in there.
The taxable implications?
Yes.
That's the one I just answered. Yeah.
Okay. So
he did have some taxes, but he didn't have any penalty or anything. Yeah, he was
perfect.
Yep.
That's what I thought. I'll tell you, I got a bunch of notes. I got some things I'm going to do. I think I found way more than $5,000. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and this awesome info.
Oh, thank you for giving me the platform. I love being able to serve any way I can, so I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, and thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. You've been awesome. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.